Okay, welcome to Ty and Joe Go to the Dogs. I'm excited because we've got another guest on with us today. I've got a good friend with us today. We've got Adam Katz. So, first off, Adam, welcome to our show.
Thanks for having me.
And so, Adam, before we get into, I want to talk about your dog training adventures, where dog training has taken you. But why don't you give us your bio? Who's Adam? You know, what have you done? What are you currently doing? That kind of stuff.
Sure. I grew up in Southern California and always loved dogs, but had little success with dog training. And I went the route that probably most people go, which is to go to your local Parks and Rec. At the time, this was in the 70s, the 1970s. And there was an old German guy training in the park, and he had a group class, and I had a little Shetland sheepdog at the time. And long story short, I didn't really get much out of it. I didn't get the kind of results that I was looking for. And I had a very, very low bar for what dog training was about. Now, I went home and over the course of several months, I ended up reading every book at the library on dog training and tried everything I could and still just got not very good results with my dog.
How old would you have been at the time?
I was probably, I don't remember, maybe 12 or 13.
Oh, so really young.
Yeah, really young, really young. We actually had a dog before that, quite when I was very young, that was also kind of a disaster because, you know, nobody knew anything about training dogs back then. It wasn't as much of a career as it is today. So, flash forward to me in college. I went to college at the University of California at Berkeley. And I was at a study group with a woman who was married to an Israeli guy who had trained dogs with the Israeli army and done all kinds of cool stuff. And while I was at this study group, he had the biggest pit bull I'd ever seen. This huge, gigantic Rottweiler, and both of the dogs were on a downstay. And if you don't know what a downstay is, that just means that the dogs were lying down and staying down regardless of what was going on. And people were eating food and dropping chips and getting up and going to the bathroom. And the dogs didn't take their eyes off this woman's husband. And I thought, wow, this is phenomenal. I want to learn to do it. And I inquired a little bit more. It's not that it was just a hobby. She said, no, you know, he's really good at fixing aggression problems. And he's able to get these amazing results. And he's got this little business. And he's got so many people, he's turning people away. And I was looking at a career in advertising at the time. And looking at a life of sitting in an office somewhere with the fluorescent lights and having the fluorescent lights burn off my vitamins. And I thought, this isn't what I want to do. I want to do what he's doing. So I lobbied him for about a couple of months to take me on as an apprentice. And finally he agreed. And I spent about a year working under his tutelage, learning how to work with aggressive dogs and just his approach to training, which was very much kind of an old school Bill Keeler kind of approach to training. And then, so I did that while I was in college. I graduated from college, and after college, I went to St. Louis, Missouri, and worked with Tom Rose, who has kind of a trade school for professional dog trainers. And Tom Rose was a guy who had won like the Shipson Nationals 3 years in a row, and he'd written a couple of books, and he was widely acknowledged as an authority, and still is. So I thought, this is cool. And I went there, and I learned a lot about all kinds of training, Shipson training, and police dog training, and tracking, and search and rescue, and obedience competition, and all kinds of stuff. And spent about 3.5 months with him. Primarily, I wanted to learn how to work with aggressive dogs, because I knew that's where the bread and butter of the companion dog training business lied. So, spent about 3.5 months working under him, and finally felt like I had most of the keys to the puzzle to be able to go out and hang up a shingle and set up my own business. Returned to Los Angeles, flash forward a few months, set up a company called South Bay Canine Academy. That became a raging success. And 7 years later, I realized we're having so much success and touching so many people with our techniques, but I felt like I wanted to move beyond just the Los Angeles area. So I started writing, and first I wrote a newsletter called Secrets of a Professional Dog Trainer. And we published that newsletter for about a year, and then I combined everything from that newsletter into a little book. And that was right when the internet started to take off. And so we packaged all of the information into a little book, and then recorded 5 audio lectures and a little disc by that. And that did really well. And it kind of grew as the internet was taking off. And we were one of the original dog training websites. And then we also did a DVD series with 5 DVDs, and later packaged all of that with the book and the audio lectures and all of that together. And years later, we were able to digitize all of that information and put it up on our website at dogproblems.com. And now people can pay to have access to that, as well as access to myself and our team of trainers to really get maximum results with their dog in minimal time. So that's where we are now.
So let me ask you this: on a scale of 1 to 10, when you were at the University of Berkeley, how big of a hippie were you?
Oh, I was kind of the anti-hippie at that point.
So you weren't hanging out on Telegraph, going to the record stores, smoking weed, stuff like that?
No, it really wasn't me. You know, my parents were hippies, and I kind of had to rebel against that.
Oh gosh! So your rebellion was being like
conforming,
straight,
straight-laced. I like it.
Yeah.
So, and for the listeners at home, yeah, I heard about Adam a long time ago through that website that he mentioned, dogproblems.com, and so I've known about him for a long time, and then got to know him online and became friends. But one thing that I think is really interesting about you is just kind of where your dog training adventures have taken you, and so where have you? So you started, providing your information online in the form of books and DVDs. And that allowed you a little bit of freedom. Where did you live with that freedom?
Well, first I moved to Texas, and the books became immensely popular, and the audio lectures, and the website, the whole thing. And we moved to Texas for a while, and then decided that I wanted to see what dog training was like outside of the United States. And Costa Rica sounded real good. I think Costa Rica kind of appealed to you at a certain point in your career as well.
Yep, I lived there.
And so I moved to Costa Rica, and we lived in Costa Rica for about 2.5 years, and that was really cool.
Where did you live in Costa Rica? I don't think I've ever asked you that. Where were you?
Sorry?
Where were you in Costa Rica?
I lived predominantly around San Jose. First I lived in a little town called Moravia, which was kind of a middle-class Costa Rican town, and lived in a threeplex. And the woman who I lived in the middle unit, and no, sorry, I lived on the left unit. My friend lived in the middle unit, and the woman who owned the threeplex lived on the right-hand side. And so she lived there with her granddaughter. And what was really interesting was, while we were living there, she bought her granddaughter, without asking me or any my input, she bought her granddaughter a little Cocker Spaniel. And I'm not a huge fan of the Cocker Spaniel as a breed, just because they're so overbred. But I couldn't believe that when she brought this dog home, and this was pretty much the perfect Cocker Spaniel. I mean, he looked perfect. He had the perfect temperament. I mean, he was just a phenomenal specimen of the breed. I mean, I still get excited thinking about this dog.
So he didn't pee when you talked to him, like every other Cocker Spaniel I've met?
Sorry?
He didn't pee when you talked to him, like every Cocker Spaniel I've met?
No, this was just a great little dog. I mean, structurally, the ears were set right. I mean, everything was perfect, and I couldn't believe that in this little town, somewhere in Costa Rica, she was able to find this perfect specimen. And that was, surprisingly, that was kind of a theme that kept hitting me over the head as I traveled around Latin America. You run into these dogs that were like these great, extremely well-bred dogs, and they weren't always dogs that were, imported or from the AKC or whatever. It was just, I don't completely understand how that happened, but we just time and time again we ended up seeing these great dogs.
That's cool. So where did you live after Costa Rica?
So I lived in several little cities around San Jose, which is the capital of Costa Rica, over a period of about 2 years. Met my wife in Costa Rica. She was also training dogs, but working full time as a clerk or as an agent for Western Union, and she was setting up agencies all over Africa. And so we met and fell in love, and ended up traveling together, and we moved to Panama City, Panama. And again, was also surprised that there were so many, mostly little dogs in Panama City, but the people were fanatical about their dogs. I mean, just like they are here. I mean, people treated these dogs like they were members of the family. And let me take a step back. It was a little bit more mixed in Costa Rica, because in Costa Rica you had you had kind of the upper class who treated their dogs like most pet owners do in America, but the middle class and the lower classes in Costa Rica, not so much. So you'd see a lot of dogs that were either what they call callejeros, which were like street dogs, or dogs that would just kind of come and go and live off the trash. And you saw a lot of dogs that were like tied up outside, and their jobs were just like guard dogs, tied up to like the shell of a pickup truck that was left outside in the yard. And so not such a great experience for the dog. Now Panama City is more similar to kind of a first world city with first world amenities, and typically because it's so hot there, I think it doesn't lend itself to just leaving dogs outside, which is a good thing. So more of the dog owners that we saw in Panama City were people who were kind of the middle and upper class people who kept the dogs as personal pets, mostly living in apartment complexes and such.
Gotcha. Yeah, I noticed that a lot in Costa Rica too, just the different dog culture, which I always found interesting, that, even, for example, I remember I did some group classes with some folks there just kind of as a help to the community, and so I was doing some group classes down in the town where we lived right on the coast of Costa Rica, and a couple of the people were fairly middle class, where they owned vehicles. Not a lot of people own vehicles. There's a lot of taxis and stuff, but a couple of these folks owned vehicles, and had more money than the average Costa Rican, and yet they still thought nothing of just letting the dog wander and roam and flea bitten and stuff like that. And so the culture I noticed the culture was definitely still different, but moving in the direction where I think it is here in the States, where the dogs are more members of the family, and I think that's cool. I think that's good.
Yeah, and to their credit, they did have a German Shepherd Club in Heredia, which is another little town outside of San Jose, and these people were really as into their dogs as any dog club in the United States, and they even had like a Schützen Club, which wasn't on the same par as some of our Schützen clubs back in the United States. Not to sound too nationalist, but the passion was there, and the drive and the desire to work with their dogs, and they were really into it, and really into learning. And I did a seminar down there for them, and they all just really love their dogs, and that's a good thing to see. And I think that the more of that happens down there, it'll be infectious, and it'll start to grow.
So where'd you go after Panama City?
After Panama City, we moved to Bogota, Colombia.
Cool.
And that was phenomenal. And for those who don't know, Bogota, Colombia is situated at about 8,600 feet above sea level.
Wow.
And it's near the equator, but because it's so high, the temperature is very cool. So it's a climate kind of similar to San Francisco. So it's cool and crisp. And that was just a blast. I mean, I just love Bogota. And we made friends with a local veterinarian who was a couple of blocks from the apartment that we were renting, and lived there for about a year, and ended up adopting a really nice golden retriever that was about a year old. It was a dog that some people had boarded with another veterinarian, and decided when the bill was due they didn't want the dog, so they left the dog, and the dog ended up growing up the first year of its life at the vet clinic.
Wow.
So I was kind of in between dogs at the time, and I went by that vet clinic and said, I'm looking for a dog, maybe a golden, maybe a border collie. Let me know if you guys know of anybody. And they said, we've got this dog. This is a great dog. And so I said, bring him up. So they brought him out. It was like downstairs, almost like this dungeon of a kennel. And I did some temperament tests on the dog, and the dog was just great. I mean, just a beautiful dog, just gorgeous. And you can see on our YouTube channel, we have some of the earlier videos of the dog, and we've still got him. He's about 10 years old now.
Oh, cool.
And, he lays around the house all day while we go off to work, and his job is just to kind of suck up the sun and guard the house, but he ended up being a phenomenal dog. So what was really interesting about Colombia was that the people there were really, really into their dogs, and that was just a really nice thing to see. Like I said, we became friends with another veterinarian who had a clinic near our apartment, and she had a really nice little border collie, and these people are just phenomenal people. So really, really loved Bogota, Colombia.
And so was it back to the States after Colombia?
Yeah, back to the States. I kind of had my fill of the Latin American adventure. so we came back to the States, initially settled in Las Vegas for a couple of years, and then decided that the climate there was just way too hot for me, and moved up to the northern Nevada area, Reno specifically, and this is where we've been for the past several years, and we love it here.
And you've you finally started an actual. I mean, obviously you've been working with clients, online and stuff, but you finally started a brick and mortar business, right?
Yeah, I had two other brick and mortar businesses, if you call it that. One in Southern California, which was South Bay Canine Academy, and then briefly I had one in Las Vegas, which was called Adam's Las Vegas Dog Training Company, and that one was more for creating more video content for the users on our website to see me, working with dogs and working with a variety of different dogs. It gets boring if you just see Adam working his own dog all the time. So,
yeah.
But yeah, once we were settled here in Reno, we set up a local company called Katz Dogs, and it's been met with huge success. I mean, I'm looking at probably hiring another trainer or two soon because it's growing beyond what my wife and I can handle, and we're having a good time.
I like Reno. Will you hire me?
I'd love to.
Yeah? I don't work very hard, and I have a bad attitude. So does that matter?
Joe, what about you?
Well, I'm not as well spoken as Ty, so I don't know.
Yeah, but I bet you have a better attitude.
That's not hard. I set the bar pretty low.
Yeah.
So let's get in more to the dogs. Let's talk more dog behavior. So you had kind of told us a little bit about your dog training evolution, where you started out with a guy you didn't like, and then you went to a guy that was kind of like Keeler. And for those listening at home, Bill Keeler was like one of the original dog guys. I mean, people have been training dogs for thousands of years, but Bill Keeler, was a Hollywood dog trainer, and he had books before anybody else had books, and he had stuff on TV before anyone else did, and kind of a classic. Some of it I think is awesome. Some of it is pretty crazy brutal. And then you had Tom Rose. Tell us about your style. Where do you fit in and on how you get results with dogs?
I think it's kind of a blend. I tried to pick and choose the best from each modality, and then keep the best and lose the rest. And a lot of dog training is also your own personal expression. So even if I think your system and my system are pretty similar and fairly compatible. We're in the same. We're both balanced trainers. We operate in the same universe, in the same ballpark, if you will. But each of us kind of puts our own spin on it in a certain way, and it's a lot like it's a lot like any endeavor, like playing guitar, I guess. It's like we can both learn guitar from the same instructor, but the way that you play guitar is going to sound a little bit different than the way that I play guitar, and that's really where it comes down to the client to pick and choose whose approach they want to go with. And finding one that reflects their own values and the way they see, dogs and what they want to get with their dogs. So, yeah, my approach, I try and take kind of a modified working dog approach. I look at the working dog trainers, the people who train police dogs and search and rescue dogs and dogs for the handicapped. I mean, these are people who can't make excuses. The dog has to work regardless of what else is going on. It doesn't matter. When they send that police dog to apprehend us, the suspect, if there's another dog in the yard or there's somebody drops a hot dog, it doesn't matter. The dog's still got to do the work. Right. Same thing with the handicapped dogs. If you're walking through, a street fair, and you're relying on that dog as somebody with a handicap, you can't make excuses that, kid over there dropped a hot dog, and therefore my dog's not listening to me. No, the dog's got to work regardless of what else is going on. So we've tried to kind of model that same approach to dog training, and at the same time maintain a happy, well-adjusted dog, a dog that actually looks forward to working with you. And one of the things that you'll see with our dogs is that when we go to get the training collar, regardless of what the training collar is, be it the prong collar or the choke chain or the remote collar or just the buckle collar, the dogs run to us and their tails are wagging and they're jumping up and down. They're happy because training means we get to go outside and play and have fun. It's not just this old military style sit, down, it's hey, go get the ball, bring it back, lie down. The faster you lie down, the faster I throw the ball, and it's enjoyable for the dog. And in my opinion, that's what training is about. It's got to be as fun for the dog as it is for the handler, yet the dog still has to be 100% reliable.
Right. So it's about relationship and effective communication, all that
Absolutely.
stuff.
It's all about the relationship, and yeah, it's about establishing a proper way of communicating with the dog so that the commands are both understood and they have meaning.
Yep.
And so you talk about relationship, and I think we probably feel the same way, that relationship is so critical, and oftentimes it's overlooked. I think it's overlooked, at least in the pure positive way, you know, where training is all with treats and stuff. You don't really build relationship by becoming a hot dog dispenser. And so how do you find that, you know, what are some key things that you do to build a relationship with a dog?
I find training itself is what really builds the relationship with the dog. And you're absolutely right. You cannot, you know, no healthy relationship is built on bribery, right?
Right.
That's my wife.
You can only bribe somebody so long before they decide that, you know, it's just not worth it to me.
I don't know, I've been married to my wife almost 13 years now, and I had to bribe her to do, you know, everything along the way, the dates, the marriage, staying with me. It's working.
Well, if it's working, keep doing it. That's one of my mottos.
Well,
Keep doing it.
So, and what you said right there, Adam, is a pretty big deal, because when I first started with Ty, he used me to sell a German Shepherd. I was the guy that got beat up by the dog. This dog was about 95 pounds. He bit like a crocodile, and just a powerful, powerful dog.
And you wanted him to bite, right?
Right, yeah. So yeah, he was a personal protection dog, and we went to drop this dog off, and well, we practiced. So for about a week, I got beat up by this dog, and I had bruise on top of bruise. We got down there to the client, and Ty said, "Well, I just want you to bond with this dog," and so back then I was like, "Well, how do you have him bond with the dog? Hand feeding, whatever?" And he says, "No, just, you know, do obedience, do a walk, do some downstays, establish a relationship." And so yeah, it goes back to that, and we see that over and over. These dogs are bred and to, you know, to listen to us and to have that relationship set up in that way, to do obedience and to work for us.
Yeah, and it takes, you know, a little while, anyways, to, you know, establish a proper relationship with the dog. Because, you know, initially you take the leash and the dog's, you know, who are you and why should I listen to you? So you have to build trust, and you have to communicate. Well, like we said, establish a relationship with the dog where the dog understands that you're going to be fair, and that's where the respect comes in from both the dog and from the handlers, that you've established a proper relationship built on mutual respect. So the dog knows that, you know, if you're correcting him, you're only going to correct him, and you're only going to be fair about it. So you're not going to correct him for something that's unfair, because, you know, the dogs are smart enough to know, and they get defensive or they resent it, and that's where you see a lot of problems come in.
Yeah, I know.
I think for any intelligent trainer, they're aware of that.
Right. Yeah, I know if any stranger walked in and tried to correct Ty's Rottweiler, and especially if it was an unfair one, they might have their hands full.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's like I tell my clients, it's like, you know, if let's flip it around. If my wife walks up to me on the street and says, "Give me $20," well, I have a relationship, you know, based on trust and respect, so I'm going to give her the $20. We could say with my wife, it's more based on respect.
Yeah.
But I'm giving her the money because we have a relationship. We've established a relationship. I know who she is. She knows who I am. But if some random stranger comes up and asks me for money, I'm not giving them any money. I don't have a relationship with that person.
Right.
And it's the same thing with the dog.
And so, answer me this, because one thing that I hear a lot of, you know, depending on where you're going to learn about dog training and things like that, a lot of folks say, well, that's the reason that you can't use an electric collar, or you can't use a pinch collar or something like that, is because that will actually damage the respect, and now you're not working together, you're just working through fear. So when that person in Reno comes into your office and says, I want training, and you're trying to explain how you go about doing it, and they have that concern, what do you tell them?
Well, I mean, first, from an experiential standpoint, you've fixed so many thousands of dogs at this point that I don't even know that the issue issues up for conjecture, but I do know what you mean, because people come in and they do ask that question, even though it surprises me. But really what I think your listeners need to understand is that you need to stop fixating on the individual tool and start just understanding that whatever tool you use, it's about communicating. And so we don't use the remote collar, what some people call the shock collar. We don't really use it as a shock. I mean, that was the old school 1970s style of using it, where you push the button and the dog would say come, and you push the button and the dog would jump 10 feet in the air and then come back to you. The way that it's used now is more similar to kind of, it feels like a TENS machine in a chiropractor's office. It creates like a tapping sensation. So it's not actually a shock, it's just like a thump, 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 like a tapping, like a tingle. And we teach the dog that when you feel that tap, 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 it means pay attention and look at me. So it's used more as like a way to reach out and give the dog like a little nudge, just a little, hey, pay attention to me, pay attention to me. And once I've got the dog's attention on me, and I can keep the dog's attention on me, then I can, have him do whatever I want. So, I think most intelligent dog owners, once you explain it to them and you break it down and you show them that it's not about using it to intimidate the dog, and it's not about creating an aversion. Because if it was an aversion, we'd never be able to send the dog out away from us to pick up an item, right? You just take off, and when you go towards the item, he'd want to be averse to the item. So that, just common sense is looking at it the way that we're using it. It can't just be an aversive. There's got to be something else, and what that something else is it's a communication tool and a way of getting the dog's attention or focusing the dog's attention.
Gotcha. When did you start using e-collars? Do you remember at what point in your career?
Yeah, I started using it in probably the mid 90s. But to be honest, it's only been, and the way that I used to use it was we would just synchronize the tap, the button press on the collar with the leash tuck. And we would synchronize the two, and that in and of itself, I mean, if you knew nothing else, you'll get good results using it that way. But lately, within the last maybe 4 or 5 years, we've started to transition into using it, is more of creating that tapping sensation, where you're using it more of a communication, more of an attention tool, rather than simply an enforcement of a command.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, so we're running short on time here, so if you had any other advice, here comes a dog owner, they're looking for dog information online, they run across this podcast, and they're like, all right, my dog, he does this, this, and this, whatever this, and this happens to be, what's the first thing you tell that person that's going to help them, start to create a better relationship or get their dog trained? What's the first thing you have somebody do?
Well, I say first thing is go to dogproblems.com.
Boom!
Subscribe to our free weekly dog training tips newsletter. That's my plug. It goes out to over 66,000 dog owners internationally, and every week you get a dog training tip that explains a little bit about my approach to dog training. If you're really into it, really hardcore, then definitely download my book, Secrets of a Professional Dog Trainer, an Insider's Guide to the Most Jealously Guarded Dog Training Secrets in History. And that one's available exclusively at dogproblems.com. It also gives you direct access to me in our Master Dog Trainer discussion forum. Now, if that's a little bit too much and you just want to taste a little sample, check out several of my books that are available on Amazon.com, including The Dog Training System That Never Fails. Now, if you don't want to spend any money, check out our new podcast called Katz Talks Dogs. That's Katz, Katz Talks Dogs, which you should be able to download in probably pretty much the same places you're downloading this podcast right now. So that's my pitch.
When do I get to be on your podcast?
Very, very soon. As soon as I figure out this cool software you're using. See, you're such a little techie kid.
I am such a pioneer trailblazer.
You are. In fact, I'm humbled being in your presence, and all kidding aside, you've been a big inspiration in terms of getting us more along the road to podcasting and some of the other stuff on the internet. So I
cool.
Sincerely thank you for that. Also, for any of you listening, if you are, I'm sure you'll take the time to promote your own stuff. But Ty Brown and his band of cohorts at Communicanine are the only people that we refer to in the greater Salt Lake City, or Utah for that matter, area. So when people call us up, because we do get calls, nationally and internationally, anybody in the Utah area, we send them all to Ty Brown. So the guy that you're listening to right now is the guy you want to get in contact with.
Well, thank you so much, sir.
My pleasure.
Well, good. So, yeah, everyone head over to dogproblems.com. He's got a ton of great stuff over there, a ton of great information, whether it's free or it's one of his books. But in any case, tons of great information. Of course, thanks for listening to us. Head over to tietheDogGuide.com to get more information on what we do. And please head over to iTunes and give this a great review. I will pat you on the back after you do. Thanks for being on the show today, Adam.
Thanks, Adam.
My pleasure. Talk to you soon.